Subscribe.
We'll highlight all that. Don't you worry.
I'm just
But of
saying,
course.
you gotta remind people.
Subscribe right now.
Subscribe. We're 77 subscribers away from our January goal on YouTube.
Oh, shit.
So subscribe.
Subscribe. Of course.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
While the lead story of the week might you think it's Nick Dunlap winning the AmEx, I'll actually have you know, Aaron Rodgers in his very first round of golf after overcoming his Achilles surgery, brings the Jets O-line on a golfing trip and nails a hole-in-one on the 17th. Is this a bigger news story than I'm making it out to be, or a lesser news story? Because I feel like he's showing off that he is totally capable of A, golfing, and B, will he be better on the golf course than he is as a New York Jet come next year?
Well, as a Jets fan, I'll start it off. I think instead of the offensive lineman playing golf, they should learn how to block so he doesn't re-injure himself 4 plays into next year, because they can't block a lick. So, I mean, look, it's awesome. I mean, he's a really good golfer. And, I heard from someone who heard from someone who probably heard from someone that Aaron is interested in taking a lesson or two or however many from my swing coach, Mike Bender. So that's pretty sick.
It's going to Ben versus Aaron Rodgers.
What's that?
Ben versus Aaron Rodgers. We can even throw in Jeff McNeil.
That would be sick. Throw in Arthur Blank there too. The Falcons.
Talk about Benny and the Jets.
I got to talk to Arthur Blank during one of his lessons with Mike Bender too, the Falcons coach. So that was pretty cool.
You know what? If we can get Aaron Rodgers on this show, similarly to how he's been on McAfee, which granted I understand that they paid him a shit ton of money to be on, but the T-shirt idea of just Ben and Aaron Rodgers and it just says Benny and the Jets, elite concept that I am literally all fucking over. That would be amazing. But we'll see how that.
It's also known that Aaron Rodgers is a pretty good golfer.
Yeah, he's really good.
That's what I hear. Well,
because he plays in that event that's in Tahoe every year.
Yeah, the American Century. Mm-hmm. Actually, Jeff McNeil just reposted something about he I think was at a pro-am for the LPGA Tour. It was him, Annika Sorenstam, Derek Lowe, and I think John Smoltz. And I know Smoltz
I haven't heard in a long time.
Smoltz is really fucking good at golf. I think it was like him and like Vinny Del Negro in the final round, I think last year at the American Century, if I'm not wrong. Like Smoltz is like a plus handicap golfer. Like he's sick. But
that doesn't surprise me with how boring he is. He just dials it on the golf course.
I mean, it makes sense. But also like
he probably just really talks to himself.
You know who's apparently a really bad golfer? I mean, like good in terms of like being a non-professional golfer, of course, but like bad in terms of he's like a total sandbagger. Apparently, Ken Griffey Jr. is like a total sandbagger.
That doesn't surprise me. But he also feels like an all-time vibes guy.
Probably. He might take. I feel like he takes the game too seriously when he goes to play.
I don't know. He's a sports photographer now. Him and Randy Johnson.
That's freaking funny. Randy Johnson, I think, was on the sideline for the Bucks-Lions game. I think.
He went to school for photojournalism, so he's basically like doing what he went to school for, and he was like, baseball was just a thing that happened.
Just waltzing around the field 7 feet tall, just like roaming around.
I just have one other thing to say. Fly Eagles fly. And
oh God, we're starting this.
We're already on a good note. We fired both Desai and Matt Patricia tonight.
So. Well, I mean, what else were you guys gonna do with them? They were terrible. That was hilarious.
I've just been waiting for it, and it's a beautiful thing.
Sirianni is keeping his job, right? This is like all right. So now the question is while Aaron Rodgers is golfing with his offensive line, who can't block a lick, who's replacing Jason Kelce?
Jason Kelce's playing one more year, brother.
Didn't he retire?
No. Adam Schefter did what he did to Tom Brady and jumped the gun because the very next day, Jason Kelce was on New Heights and said, when the time comes, you'll hear it from me. And then this week in media availability, Travis Kelce said, I think the big fella has another year of football, has some football still left in him if he wants it, and he is currently in Buffalo watching the Chiefs-Bills game, jumping into the crowd and chugging beers with Bills fans and tailgated with Bills Mafia today. So I think Jason Kelce's coming back for one more year, and it allegedly the Eagles restructured his contract a little bit already to save $2.4 million in cap space. You don't do that if you're retiring.
You know what? I love Jason Kelce, and you and I have talked a lot about it, how like he's your like idol. First of all, the beards just match up, the body types match up.
Two best beards in Philadelphia.
But I do think like, well, when James Harden was there, it was the three best beards. Tough conversation.
System beard.
What is it, Brock Purdy's fucking beard?
He can't even grow one facial hair.
I will say, despite my disliking for Philadelphia sports, I think that Jason Kelce is probably the one guy that I think is like, because like in general, family man kind of guy, just totally vibes with me.
He met his wife on Tinder, and she's from Philly.
And she had no idea he played for the Eagles.
Best.
There's nothing about it, and he fell asleep at the bar that night, their first date.
They're both in the booth with in the luxury box with Taylor Swift right now too.
I love it.
Just two recording artist icons, Jason Kelce and Taylor Swift.
That Christmas album is fucking fire.
It's so good.
But Jordan Mailata carries it. Welcome in, folks, to the Getting the Whole podcast. Stephen McAvoy, Ben Pirro, Kyle Bennett joining the seat for the first couple of segments of the show. We're brought to you today and every day by our friends over at Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the industry. Founded by Ben in my hometowns out on Long Island, rep by some of the biggest personalities in sports, including Chris Hogan, Kyle Harrison, John Jay, and everyone's favorite golfer, Paige Sporanic. Tomahawk Shades is guaranteed to keep you looking fresh from the first hole to the 18th green and beyond. Head to TomahawkShades.com or download the Tomahawk Shades app on the App Store or Google Play Store and browse their selection of sunglasses, blue light glasses, and prescription shades. And be sure to use the code USP for 25% off your next order. These are actually from Tomahawk Shades, so we're looking pretty freaking fire.
And I along with many people in our company, subscribe to the fact that you genuinely need sunglasses even more in the wintertime where we live than you do in the summertime.
Dude, so I got made fun of the other day by a coworker of mine. I walked into work, I have the sunglasses on, and even Kay said it today. We're walking to our car. She goes, "The sun's brighter because of the snow."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I got made fun of by a coworker.
Powder.
He's like, "Why are you wearing sunglasses in the winter?" I'm like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like the reflection of the snow is bright. Like I'm like, it's 1:30 in the afternoon, and I look like a hungover being, just like fludging around everywhere.
It's
with
terrible.
the sunglasses on. It was terrible.
Plus, Tomahawk Shades did a collab with the hockey guys too, so you can check out those shades.
You know, it's a beautiful thing that I live in West Palm now because it's not freezing cold and snowing, but we still wear our sunglasses down here year round because it's 75 and sunny this time of year, so it's beautiful with a light breeze. Get nice and tan. I'm sure you guys are jealous. Nick Dunlap, let's talk about this kid. Jesus.
Speaking of Florida, I might be making my way down to Florida in February.
No way, really? Where?
I'm trying to go to spring training, and I have a couple friends that live in Florida, and we might road trip around Florida to go to spring training.
Dude, if you do, let me know, because I love me some baseball. And
I'll be wearing my Tomahawk Shades when I'm down there.
Well, there you go. See, that's what I call a fucking segue. So, Nick Dunlap, guys, the real story of the week. Fuck Aaron Rodgers. The 20-year-old Alabama men's golfer, the amateur of the year, honestly, at this point, takes home the American Express, the first amateur to win on the PGA Tour since 1991. If you guys know a little bit of trivia, that was Phil Mickelson. The other stats around this, I tweeted this out earlier on the Twitter. By the way, follow us, Getting the Whole Pod. Nick Dunlap's win. He's the first amateur since Phil to win on tour. He's the first reigning U.S. amateur champion to win on the PGA Tour since Tiger Woods in 1996. So huge props there. He's the youngest amateur since 1910 to win on the PGA Tour, and he's the second youngest player to ever win on the PGA Tour since World War II, the only other guy being Jordan Spieth when he won the John Deere in his rookie season. So the metrics behind this are crazy. He wins a 29.9 under par. He becomes only the second amateur ever to shoot 60 which he did in round 3 to claim the 54-hole lead. Just like an epic week for this kid who his parents flew out for the weekend once they found out that he was primed to make the cut after round 3. They showed out. His coach was there. On the bag was one of his best friends and teammates. He had other teammates there. An amazing scene in La Quinta at the AmEx. Honestly, the story of the year so far with the win, probably the coolest part of all this, 2-year exemption on tour, invites to all the majors, will be included in every signature event. However, there's a bit of a caveat to this, which I think is interesting, because he's still in college and the PGA U rules require golfers to now have 4 years of college completed until they can turn pro. He's technically considered a PGA Tour member, but he has to be an amateur until he completes 4 years of college. So the next 2 years, he'll be able to play on any event he wants. Yeah. So he'll be able to play any event he wants, but the caveat is he'll have to be an amateur for all of them. However, if by the end of his time he wins PGA-U, every year he wins it, he will add another year of exemption onto his scope, which will come in after he graduates. So if he wins it this year, he'll have a year immediately coming out. If he wins a junior year, so he can really have a 5-year tour card at this point, 3 years being retroactive to when he actually wins each year. So pretty cool to see how things turn out for Nick Dunlap, but an amazing week. I'm watching this kid all day Saturday, and I was like jaw-dropping to see him. I think he knocked home 3 or 4 birdies of over 30 feet. Like the proximity to the hole, he finished, I think, 21 on average, 21 feet. He finished top 5 in strokes gained tee to green, finished top 5 in strokes gained off the tee. Approach game was amazing. The putting was amazing. Everything about this was just fantastic, and the stats kind of speak for themselves. So congratulations to Nick Dunlap. We'll talk more AmEx news, but just incredible stuff, guys. Please give me your thoughts here.
When you said putting from 30 for birdie, all I could think of was, what if I told you? A sophomore from Alabama.
ESPN, 30 for 30 brings you.
30 for birdie brings you.
Well,
Roll Tide.
Birdie from 30 probably would be the actual name of the thing. Although he nailed a 6-footer to win it, so I guess it doesn't really add up. Might I add also, he had double bogey, I think, on the 8th hole, and still managed to come back. So to give you an idea of how good his actual performance was, Ben, as the pro in the room, give us your thoughts for a 20-year-old like Nick, how he manages to, where do you go from here?
Well, okay, so I'm a little bit confused. So he has the 2-year exemption because he just won.
Yes.
So, but I believe he can still turn pro and maintain that 2-year exemption.
There's a bit of a, it's weird, right? So he can declare to be a pro. But he has to quit college golf at that point. But he still needs to complete 4 years of college in order to join the PGA Tour. That's a rule for those who go into college.
No, it's not.
It was changed November 2022 because of the PGA-U rules.
Well, I think No. I think I think that's specific for the PGA-U.
Is it now?
Yeah, you can turn pro out of high school and go straight to Q school. Absolutely. That's why you have guys who are amateurs in college. That's why they go to Q school. Because then if they make it through Q school, they just turn pro.
But then,
the PGA Tour U thing, that's completely separate. If he wanted to turn pro, if he sat there tonight, looked at his family, was like, "Screw college, I'm not going back," he could just turn pro and play as a professional on the PGA Tour now because he has a 2-year exemption. It's no different than a college golfer who, let's say in August, they decide, you know what, I'm going into my junior or senior year, because this happens a lot. They decide, well, I'm going to go to Q school as an AM. Or they'll do Canadian Tour Q school in April or March or April while they're in their last semester of college. They'll do it as an AM. And then that way, if they get through Q school, then they're like, well, I'm just going to turn pro then. Because that way they maintain their amateur status. If they don't make it through Q school, they can continue to play the college year. And then if they do make it onto like PGA Tour Canada or like the PGA Tour, like America's Tour or Korn Ferry Tour, they can just, play out that semester, or if they just decide to leave, they can just leave. So,
all right, yes, yeah, you are right. Yeah, so according to the rules, that is PGAU specific. So in turn, he can technically just declare to be pro now and just leave college at that point.
Yeah,
I guess
it's a good thing. It's a good thing I'm paying attention because Steven just gave the public some bad information.
I will admit, yes, I gave some faulty info. My previous sources are off. It also doesn't help that there's no FAQ list for anything that isn't PGAU.
Your previous sources aren't off. You just misinterpreted what you read. But regardless, this is an unbelievable accomplishment. As Steven said, this hasn't happened since the early 90s, since Phil Mickelson won at TPC Scottsdale when he was at Arizona State. It was Arizona State, right? Yeah. It was Arizona State.
It was the I think it was the Tucson Open at that point in 91.
Yeah, but it was at TPC Scottsdale, I believe. But this is almost unprecedented, because of how rare this is. I mean, this hasn't happened in over 30 years. So in the modern day of golf, this hasn't happened. And it's a little bit surprising it hasn't happened in a way because of how much better golfers are at the college level than they were 25, 30 years ago when Phil won back at the Tucson Open or whatever it was called. Yeah. I remember playing with an individual who he's a teaching pro, but he's played in like almost 30 PGA Tour events. He's played in the PGA Championship a number of times, and we played in the final round together at the Riviera Open a couple years ago. And he said to me, he was like, you guys are just so much better than we were at like your age. Like it's the game is so much more competitive. And so it's pretty surprising to see it's a little bit surprising, I should say, that this hasn't happened prior to this, like kind of in like this up and coming generation of golfers. But nonetheless, this is a fantastic accomplishment for clearly a fantastic player, someone who has had a very decorated junior and amateur career, plays at a premier golf school at the collegiate level. Hats off to this young fella because he has done a fantastic job. And I mean, he beat some big names out there today. I mean, some big names. I mean, you out there, you beat Xander, Justin Thomas, Adam Hadwin, Sam Burns. I mean, the list goes on. He beat Scotty Scheffler handily. Mm-hmm. He beat some players. So
I think what's really amazing about this victory for him too is the pressure, and we've talked about it at length. The idea of holding a 54-hole lead and having to go to bed that night and say like, "Oh, I'm leading in a tournament," let alone as an amateur. Like this is you never really even see this ever. I think there's only been 5 or 6 amateurs in the history of golf to ever win an event, maybe 7. So when you look at out of that lens, it's already daunting as a 20-year-old. On top of that, like Ben is alluding to, was neck and neck with Sam Burns, who basically just went up in flames the final 3 holes and lost 3 strokes in 2 holes. He had Kevin Yu, who was coming right up on his ass, who went 9 under in the final round to get the 27 under par, and Dunlap obviously shot 2 under today. So for a time, had a 3-way tie for the lead with him, Christian Bezuidenhout, Sam Burns, and Justin Thomas, and then of course Yu. And then on top of that, with Xander Schauffele riding in at 7 under, Adam Hadwin had a strong day. Keith Mitchell went 10 under today too to force his way into the top grouping. Had a lot of pressure on him and was able to still come back after an 8th hole double bogey to maintain his lead and still get back to where he had to go. And didn't get back until a share of the lead until the 16th. So,
well, he's the 5th amateur to win on tour since 1940.
Amazing.
I mean, I just before we segue into the next thing, that just shows his number one, his mental preparation was off the charts because he had the double bogey on the 8th. But look, I'm not in his head, and I'm not one of those guys that likes to sit there. You know, like those sports people, they're just like, well, he clearly was thinking this, and it's like, okay, well, how the hell do you know that? It's not like you're in his head. But as a competitive player, someone who plays at the professional level, I'm willing to bet, not a lot of money because I don't have a lot of money, but whatever. I feel comfortable saying that his process never changed. And he probably said to himself last night after the double bogey, when he was making birdies today, when he was making pars, whatever the situation was, his process stayed the same because clearly his process was working. And that's something that I live by in my game. That's something that our good friend Mickey DeMorat said when we had him on. And it doesn't matter what sport you play in. Your process is your process. And when players, when they get stressed and they go away from their process, that is a sign of stress. When they start trying different things, I guarantee you he sat there after the double bogey or last night when he had a chance, when he was, in contention. My process is working. I'm going to stick to my process. I'm going to do what I've been doing because it's working. Little blip, doesn't matter. A little blip on the radar, doesn't matter. That just shows this kid's made of the right stuff too. He's not a faker. He's not a phony. This kid at a big time event where you have to play 3 different golf courses. Think about that. You have to play 3 different golf courses. You're an amateur, okay? And you're in contention. You bogey your 8th hole. You're sitting there with 10 holes left, and you still pull it out for the win. That takes stones. So good for him. That is awesome.
Isn't it crazy that he's the first amateur to win since 1991 on the same day that the Lions go back to the NFC Championship game for the first time since 1991?
Wow.
Maybe unironic. It's also Jack Nicklaus's birthday. Take that for what you will. Who knows? Maybe we have the second coming of Jack Nicklaus for all I know. He jumps 4,000 spots to number 68 in the world as an amateur, the highest amateur rating ever in PGA Tour history. He's also currently top 15 now in the PGA Tour U rankings, but we'll see how he winds up going pro.
PGA Tour rankings had the chance to do the funniest thing and make him rank 69th. It would have been the nicest win on the tour ever.
Yeah.
I mean, he was already top 20 to begin with. I don't think they would revert him, but no, you know what? No, he was like 4,000 something. In the OWGR, and they moved him up to 64th. 5 more spots back would have been pretty suffice. We'll talk more about what allowed Dunlap to get his first maiden professional victory at the AmEx on the other side. But KB, we brought you on to discuss a little bit of a fun, crazy idea that Rory McIlroy threw out before the Dubai Desert Classic this week, which, by the way, he won for a 4th time. Is the only 4-time winner of that event ever.
Loves Dubai.
Which is funny because he only manages to win in Dubai. He's probably not going to do anything in America. But we digress because Ben doesn't want to talk about him. So the story here, though, is that he had mentioned the idea of a Champions League of golf. And I know Ben doesn't watch a lot of European football, but we all know that the Champions League, of course, is the highest echelon of the top club teams in Europe across the world, including Asia and everywhere else. I think an MLS team could probably make it, but it's probably next to impossible because of the skill gap. But essentially, Rory said, how interesting would it be if we took the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, LIVGolf, and all of the other affiliate tours, the Latin America's tour, the Asian circuit, the African circuit, whatever it may be, and create a Champions League schedule where you play a series of events, the top players in the world, whether it be top 5 in the money list from each thing, whatever it might be, to compete on this world scale. The question is, though, is that how would it be formatted? And I think this is going to be our format here to discuss it, because KB and I were landscaping this we're like literally like 5 minutes into this being put out on Twitter, and I was like, how the hell will we do this? So I want to give us the open forum here to figure out how would a Champions League work. Ben, you have the floor.
Okay, basically what he's describing is I was about to say back in the day, probably, I don't know, 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago, we had something on the PGA Tour. Well, actually, it wasn't even really a PGA Tour event. It was on the PGA Tour schedule because guys in the PGA Tour played. They're called the WGC events, the World Golf Championships. That's what that stands for. And essentially, it was all the tours. It was PGA Tour, DP World Tour, the Asian Tour, the Sunshine Tour, any tour where you could get world ranking points. You could potentially represent yourself if you were in like a certain if you had like a certain world golf ranking. My issue with this, because I don't pay attention to I don't pay much attention to anything that this guy says. The only reason I know about it is because Steven brought it up over text, and I just rolled my eyes when I heard about it because well, what else is new coming out of Rory's mouth? I don't know how it would work because number one, it's like you'd have to do like a point system like on each tour, but the skill gap between guys on the Asian Tour and like the Sunshine Tour is it's such a big gap between a guy on the PGA Tour or like at the top of LIV or the DP World Tour. The skill gap just doesn't really equate at all. And then on top of that, you would need all these different golf organizations who put on tour events to be on the same page. And right now, we can't even get the PGA Tour and LIV on the same page, right?
Yeah.
So I don't really see how this is feasible because no one's able to get on the same page. And the skill gap, like I remember, and I don't mean to get off topic, but when the idea was floated that guys that went to LIV, if they want to be back on the PGA Tour, they should have to go through Q School for Korn Ferry. Then they should have to go through the Korn Ferry Tour. If Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka or one of those guys, they go that route again, they are going to absolutely rake and just make a mockery out of those guys in the Korn Ferry Tour because the skill gap is so great. Well, that's what would happen, but on a grander scale, if we had like this Champions League kind of format where all these different tours are getting represented, the skill gap would be just dramatic, huge. And I don't really think the product would be that good. It would just be like the PGA Tour guys, the best guys on LIV, and like the best guys on the DP World Tour.
Exactly.
That's really in contention. I just don't really think. I don't know. I don't really think he thought that one through.
So it's funny you mention it because the WGC had obviously been around for a while, and up until I think it was COVID because they had originally had I know the WGC HSBC, the bank championship was in China, I believe. Yeah. That was postponed due to COVID for 3 years. Jay Monahan said like at some point we're never going to be able to really come out here and play because they had adjusted the PGA Tour schedule and they added new sponsors and everything else in order to fill the gaps for the WGCs. And then once they brought up the elevated status of events, the elevated signature events, that basically did away with the idea of the WGC because now it's the top 75 players in the world. Obviously, there's no longer a affiliation, quote unquote, involved where like the Asian Tour, whatever it might be, it's literally the top 75 on the PGA Tour. So it's funny how Rory's now talking about something that had already existed for all this time and was one of the proponents of wanting to bring up the idea of signature events when all of this was going down. KB and I were workshopping this idea, which, like you're saying, Ben, I agree with you. The skill gap is so wide where take someone who's playing on a mini tour who might be very good and might technically qualify if you take everybody and you put on a whatever would be a points ranking or a money list, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, there would have to be qualifying, like qualifying within qualifying to kind of do like match play or whatever it might be to determine the let's say 75 guys or 150 guys that are involved. I think we built this out as top 50. And I think this is the most accurate because let's say, again, those mini tour players or even the Asian tour or African tour doesn't necessarily compare to what you see on the DP World Tour, LIV, PGA Tour. We said take the top 15 PGA Tour players on the FedEx Cup points list or the money list, whatever you want to do at year's end. The top 15 on the DP World Tour that doesn't coincide to the PGA Tour. So, because obviously guys have multiple cards. The top 5 players on LIV, because you only have about 48 spots anyways, so you have to kind of dwindle the list down. Take the top 5 Corn Ferry Tour players, because at the end of the day, they're already going to the PGA Tour anyways. And then you have 10 spots up for grabs between whatever other tour. You base that off of a money list, a point list, whatever it might be, or even based off of like OWGR standards, so 4 rounds of golf, tournaments, however it may work. And that would be your top 50. Or you can even expand it further to top 100, 150, whatever it might be. But do we think that it's viable within the PGA Tour ecosystem and how the scheduling works and everything that we could ever see it back again? And KB, I'll start off with you because we haven't heard from you yet.
Well, as somebody who is pro relegation in sports, because I think it makes fandom better and I think it makes the product better and just the overall entertainment value better, it would be electric to see this in a solo player type of sport where you're not necessarily in a team aspect and different things of that nature. And I brought up to Steve too, just to play devil's advocate with you, Ben, where like the saying is any given Sunday. We've seen events like this weekend where an amateur goes out and beats the field and you have, somebody come out of the clouds like that and wins. And I'm looking at the current Champions League like grouping, which for anybody that doesn't know how that works, it's groups of 4 that are kind of like in a pool system at the beginning of the Champions League season. You figure out what pool you're in, and it's groups A through H, I believe it is. Yes. Where typically, even if you don't watch soccer, football, whatever you call it, you know the brand and the name of Manchester United. You typically associate that with being a very good squad. Right now, they're 4th in their group, and they're probably not going to make the cut in the Champions League after the group stage, which is kind of how I view this, where it's like, oh, you have this powerhouse where like somebody could show up on the golf course one day, not have it, they don't advance in this format that Rory's bringing up. So I think it's a fun concept to materialize. We do it all the time with lacrosse. It would be so much fun to have relegation there. But again, when it comes to American sports, you're never going to get relegation because TV and all that kind of stuff is so much different than it is in Europe. But I think it's something that is workable in golf simply because it's individuals. It's not a team aspect. And is it something that could happen right off the bat? Absolutely not. It's something you'd have to work around and manufacture properly. But it would be a ton of fun to watch this because I think it would create very similarly, and it's something that you and I, Steve, have talked about on this show before with how younger NBA fans in particular are more fans of players than they are of teams now. I think it would curate a fandom more so of golfers, and it's something that LIV is doing very well, where, hey, I'm rooting for this team because I like this player, or I'm just singularly like, hey, I have a team aspect to root for and get behind.
Exactly.
I think this Champions League type of format would bolster that kind of audience as well. So I like the aspect of it. Is it something that's feasible within the next 5 years? Absolutely not, but it's something that I think would be interesting to see happen.
So that's the other part of this I think is interesting. The illusion of, if we did this, would it be more viable as an individual basis? Or does Rory actually mean, because I didn't see the whole interview, he didn't mention this specifically, but the idea that I've been saying forever, integrating a team aspect to world golf and formulate this thing where AT&T sponsors a team, or Verizon sponsors a team, or Meta, or Uber, whoever it might be, Tesla, sponsors a team, has 4 golfers. Let's say we'll take a team just from LIV for shits and giggles, like Smash with Brooks Koepka. Take his team, and it's his 4 players, and you do the qualifying of a pool play, match play between all of them. You're playing your own individual ball. It's a regular tournament like anything else, but it goes by aggregate score, in comparison to everybody else that you're playing against in that group, and the best scores advance based on one tournament, or you play 4 or 5 tournaments and you get to this point.
It feels
That's
like
kind
what
of
they're
the
almost
way-
trying to play test with this. What is it? The TGL.
Yeah, it's basically the
It
same
almost
concept.
feels like that's a play test of like what Rory's like trying to articulate almost.
Yeah. Might I add, we would be in week 3 of the TGL had
Rip.
a storm not demoed
Stupid ass
the
stadium.
southeast. Imagine that shit. So like we could very well have seen the beginnings and the inner workings of what could have been, but unfortunately here we are waiting until next year to see it. But yeah, I think the team aspect. The team aspect makes a lot of sense. And I kind of do want it to get integrated into golf. I think it makes sense as a branding thing, because now the question is, and we'll talk about this in a hot second, or actually, you know what? We'll segue into it right now. Jordan Spieth had made the comment this week saying that 2024 is quote unquote a big year for the PGA Tour's future. And the whole question was, well, yes, Ben, duh, but the deeper meaning behind it was the PGA Tour has been struggling forever, and now with finances where they are, as they're trying to get in with LIV, and they're trying to work out deals with this sports consortium that includes Arthur Blank and Steve Cohen and John Henry and Fenway and so on. They're clearly looking for more money. So the best option would be that after this year, with Spieth now taking over on the policy board, said that one of the biggest talking points that the policy board's had recently is, if we can make a compelling product within the signature events and the PGA Tour ecosystem as a whole this year, to bring on more sponsors or more companies to invest into, because they're clearly looking for more money. They need more support, and they're trying to make it more worth it and valuable. There's already a question mark behind this consortium of owners within other sports of, we're going to give you $5 billion, let's say, but how much is it actually worth? What's the worth here for us to give you our funding out of our own pockets and risk a shitty investment at this point? So if they can provide a compelling product and bring in this team factor of things, not to mention they've already lost Honda, they've lost Wells Fargo now from the Wells Fargo Championship. They're losing more. There's 3 other companies, I believe, that are up in the next 1 to 2 years. Between AT&T, I think Farmers is almost up. Rocket Mortgage has to renew. So they could very well be in a hole where 6 or 7 events now on the PGA Tour have no sponsor. So where do you go? I think that the team aspect is the answer, and I think it's going to come a lot sooner than we think, particularly if we do get this framework between the PGA Tour and LIVGolf sooner than later, which, again, not reporting anything on this, but apparently Monahan has been to Saudi Arabia and has talked to Rumian in recent weeks. So they're getting closer to something. Of course, we aren't going to talk about it until it actually comes to fruition. But I think this is where we're heading. I think a Champions League would make sense if you bring in the team aspect to make a compelling product for the people.
I'm shocked a brand like Cash App hasn't gotten into the PGA Tour. That seems like a brand that they should at least try to target. They're all over other sports. They're all over huge monetized podcasts like Chris Long's Greenlight podcast. They've advertised on Part of My Take before. They're huge sponsors with the Premier Lacrosse League. It feels like something that lines up very well with the golf space. You know, money, obviously, but Cash App also has like their the ability to invest in stocks and things like that. I'm shocked that the PGA Tour, at least on the surface level to what the common man knows, hasn't tried to target something like a Cash App to be a big-time sponsor for them.
Ben?
If they do the Premier, is that what it's called? The Premier League?
Well, the Champions League.
Champions League.
Champions League.
Whatever it might be.
Sorry, I do not watch soccer. You would not be able to include like the Asian Tour, the Sunshine Tour, those smaller professional tours that are limited to like one specific kind of like, I mean, like I know like Asia is a large region, but I happen to know an individual who actually went to Asian Tour Q school and won, and he, you know, I believe he he's a very good player. played well on the Asian Tour. He won their Q School, played well for the year. Hilariously enough, he was leading Q School going into the last day. He walks to the 10th tee with a dinner roll in his pocket and was eating the other half of the dinner roll. And his buddy looked at him and he was like, why are you by the 10th tee? You tee off in like 5 minutes. You're supposed to go to the other hole, the hole 1. He was like, wait, really? He was at the wrong hole, which is kind of funny. But I just, this guy is a very, very good player, but he wasn't able to get to like the PGA Tour level. He played PGA Tour events. He had some success. But I don't see how having a Champions League with those smaller professional tours that aren't at the level of the PGA Tour or the DP World Tour or LIV, I don't see how that would be feasible. Even if you just have a couple guys from those tours, the talent gap is so wide. It's way too wide.
I think the one way that it works, in my brain at least, I could be completely off base here, but the one way it works is like you'd have to come up with, like you were saying, Steve, like some sort of point system, a money system, whatever it may be, and that's got to be as close to universal for every tour, and you'd kind of have to qualify in that sense based on that point system, very similar to Premier League, Serie A, and all the other leagues that qualify for Champions League. You have to finish top 4 in the standings to qualify for Champions League in those particular soccer leagues. So you'd have to finish with like X amount of points or X amount of dollars earned or something like that. And I think with those tours, it's one of those things that, like, if it's the Asian Tour, the Sunbelt Tour, like you were saying, Ben, like the Sunshine Tour, you'd have to be like playing on another level. And it's like, oh shit, like we've got this like underdog type of story coming in. Let's see what they can do. But then you also have the likes of the 3 big tours of PGA, DP World Tour, and LIV kind of being in the mix, but then it's also an opportunity for those golfers that are on those tours to gain even more bragging rights, gain like a level of like, yo, I'm like fucking king of the world. Like I just won the creme de la creme on top of what I'm doing in my particular tour. And it's just, I think it would be golf's way of like giving you the ultimate like title, bringing everybody together. And again, will it happen in the near future? Probably not, but it's one of those things that like it's workshop. If we're able to sit down and workshop it, like the YouTube kids meme where they're all sitting on the couch and it's like just having a discussion. If we're able to do that right here on this podcast, it's workable in real life with people who have more money, more influence, and more ability to make it happen.
Yeah, well, I think that if they wanted to do this, they might as well just bring back the WGC events then, because that's basically what it is. Like all those tours were supposedly represented in those, even though it was a rarity to see someone who was on the PGA Tour or DP World Tour at like the WGC Cadillac, or which was at Doral, or like the WGC Accenture Match Play, which is now the Dell Match Play. It was such a rarity. And like I understand, like, yeah, you can have studs on a tour for sure, right? Like you can have studs, but even the guy who like wins the money list, say like on the Corn Ferry Tour, it's very rare for him to be like a household name. Yeah. And even though those guys do play at an incredibly high level, I don't want anybody listening thinking I'm like poo-pooing the talent level on those tours. The talent level is very deep, but it's nothing like the PGA Tour. And I understand that the official world golf ranking system is a little bit outdated. I think we can all agree on that. But the OWGR, even on like the Asian Tour or like the Japanese Tour or the Japan Tour or the Sunshine Tour, they don't get the amount of ranking points you get in those events from the OWGR is nothing like compared to the PGA Tour or DP World Tour, because the courses are generally they're rated harder on the DP World or the PGA Tour, but the competition level is so much greater than that of those lesser known tours across the globe. That's just a fact. So I think maybe it would be like a cool story, if you had like one person, like the last year's money winner from the Sunshine Tour, and then last year's money winner from the Asian Tour, the Japan Tour. I think that there's like a Korean Tour. I think that could be cool, but it would more just be like a cool story than like, it would almost be like a Rudy or something.
It would also be cool to see like those types of players knowing that they're going up against, a Brooks or, somebody like that. Like even if, say, just hypothetically, like Tiger Woods is there, just like namesake wise. And it's like, this underdog story's coming out, but they elevate their gameplay knowing that they're, competing against the best of the best, and they're going out and they shoot, the round of their life. I think that kind of story is fun too, and the ability for that to happen, which is why I think you would need to come up with a new era type of point system if this were to happen. Like you wouldn't be able to use the OWGR point system at all. Like you'd have to come up with something that is, Golf Champions League point system, and it's curated in a way that makes sense. And obviously we'd need to sit down and be like the Zach Galifianakis scene in The Hangover with all the numbers and everything calculating around our brains to make sure it checks out for each individual tour. But it is something fun to think about. And then it's like, hey, if you finish, in this spot, you're auto qualifying. And if you're somebody who's an amateur or somebody who doesn't have a tour card and you end up, in this Golf Champions League, boom, you have a chance if you finish in an X amount of, place-wise, here's your tour card.
Might I also add, and I think this is the other element that I think is important, that it's almost like, think of it this way, the college football playoff is expanding now to 12 teams, and the whole reason why everyone's complaining that, it's the skill gap between the number one team in the country, let's just say, for all intents and purposes, Michigan, is going to play the 12th ranked team that might be Tulane, right?
Hey,
clearly,
don't make fun of Tulane.
I'm not
there.
I am not. I love Tulane. I wanted to go there way back when. But what I'm saying is that the skill gap between what's now a low tier Big 12 school and the Big 10, the superpower, is still so much heightened that at the very least, the point of why they're expanding is to give those new schools a chance to perform on a grand stage. Much more than they already get in general. When you look at the history of the Champions League, I'm pretty sure the only team to have ever made a Champions League final that has not been in one of the major leagues, Serie A, Bundesliga, Ligue 1, the EPL, I think probably in the last 25 years was Ajax, who plays out of fucking Austria or Amsterdam. Like there have not been many teams that ever even sniff even a quarterfinal match that aren't in one of the big leagues. I'm not saying that the guy is on the Sunshine Tour or the Japan's Tour. You're right. The skill gap is still larger because they're playing on easier courses. The point system isn't the same. They'll need to adopt a universal system of points to go through everything. I think the OWGR, because of that, is outdated, and also got to figure out LIV is probably going to be involved as well. But at the very least, it gives that one guy or two guys who led the money list on the Sunshine Tour to go against Scottie Scheffler on a given week. And again, there's going to be qualifying within qualifying. You may have 400 guys who qualify for this event, top 50 in PGA Tour, top 50 on the DP, not coinciding, top 10 in LIV. Then you have other guys in all these different tours. You're going to give a shot to 150 guys and go through qualifying events. You may have to split them into two groups, have two different events going on, and it's a match play style. And eventually you work your way up 5 or 6 events later, and the final event is the final. There's 32 golfers, there's 64 golfers in the field, and you do a 4-day match play tournament like you did at the Dell Match Play, which no longer exists. That's something that I can get behind. The question really is the scheduling, and you're going to have to dwindle down now and dedicate events to this new WGC, quote unquote, or Champions League. That's different from what we've seen in the past. But again, the Champions League, you have guys who play in Saudi Arabia, who play in Asia, who play on in the Japanese league, the Brussels league, whatever it might be, even like in Austria or Lithuania, they're never going to make the final unless it's a complete like stroke of luck. But you're giving them the opportunity to at least play on a grand stage that they can try and perform better than what they're actually rated as, which I think is important. I think Nick Dunlap also kind of gives you the idea of any given Sunday, someone could win.
He was also speaking of Nick Dunlap. He was asked if he had homework, and he said, "I do. I'm probably not doing it."
Fuck yeah, I fucking love it. I'm surprised if he.
Here's the other thing, Nick Dunlap. I mean, here's the thing. Like, he's one of those guys that comes out of like those big time golf schools. Like, you see these guys come out of like Alabama, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, LSU, Florida. You know, one of those big time golf schools. We already knew he wasn't like a can't miss. We know he's a can't miss prospect.
That's true.
He's on the level of like, you know, when Justin Thomas was coming up, he's on the level of like a Justin Thomas or like a Ricky Fowler. Like, that's the level he's at. That level is completely different from, you know, someone who's really good on like one of those smaller tours, you know, in a different part of the world. Yeah, that's a completely different level.
But equally consider this, right? So take someone like Ben On, I think is a great example. Ben On started his career playing in Korea because he couldn't get recruited to play college golf in the States. Played golf in Korea, eventually found his way to America to play the game, and has gotten up to a level that he can succeed. Of course, the PGA U is a different story because you have guys like, we already know who Michael Torbjornsson is. We know who Adrian Trussard is. We know who Ludwig Aberg is. But we're giving the opportunity now to those guys who maybe didn't get the chance to play college golf and be a top player, but he could be a sensation. We've seen guys in the past. Chan Kim is another example who, granted, he's played in America for the last 15 years, but started
the only
out.
other person I could think of was Sam Bennett at the Masters last year.
Well, Sam Bennett was the third ranked amateur in the world going into that event. So like there are examples of this, but anybody can have a shot to play the best golf that they can. Yeah, you simply have to give them the stage. You could find guys in Japan who are, again, like you find Hideki Matsuyama. He comes out of nowhere, comes from Japan, finds his way on the Korn Ferry Tour and built his way up.
Whoa, Hideki didn't come out of nowhere. Hideki was a decorated amateur player, and he was great at the Masters.
Yes, no, you're right. But what I'm saying is that there are people who need to be given the stage in order to achieve. Yes, he was the number one rated amateur in the world going into that event, going into the Masters where he won the Low-Am. But again, like, you could find guys who, and believe me, I could probably pull a list at some point of guys who are currently on the PGA Tour or other adjacent tours, even the DP World Tour, who may have not been a big-time name, but given the stage, finally made it out and got into a situation where they can achieve big things, which I think is important. But we're getting past the point of the conversation here. We need to take a break, though. We're already 50 minutes in with more to go. KB, thank you for joining us on this,
Thanks for having me, boys.
This first half of the show.
Thanks,
We'll be back on the other side. We'll chat more. What?
Subscribe.
We'll highlight all that. Don't you worry.
I'm just saying, you gotta remind people.
Subscribe right now.
Subscribe. We're 77 subscribers away from our January goal on YouTube.
Oh, shit.
So subscribe.
Subscribe. Of course, follow KB on his personal show, Outside the Box, the official lacrosse show of Underground Sports Philadelphia. And of course, follow us here. Follow us Underground Sports. Follow OTB. All that good stuff. We're going to take a short break. On the other side, we'll talk more on what got Nick Dunlap to victory lane at the AmEx. And of course, a little bit of news in the world of golf from a particular Tiger Woods. We'll be right back on the other side to discuss more.
Get in the Hole is brought to you by PHI Apparel Company, our incredible merch partners. PHI Apparel Co. provides unique designs and high-quality clothing from T-shirts to hoodies for every golfer around. With their original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out on the course, the driving range, or at the 19th hole. Go to phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND at checkout for 10% off any order. That's code underground at phiapparel.co and grab exclusive Get in the Hole podcast merch and support your favorite golfers.
Welcome back in. Get in the Hole here with Steve and Ben. Ben, we start off the second half of the show with a bit of news concerning Tiger Woods. TaylorMade Lifestyle Ventures. We still don't know where Tiger Woods is going, but I'm pretty sure this is alluding to it big time. Filed a trademark for quote-unquote Sunday Red, as well as a logo that very much resembles a tiger with that black bold face and the red background. I think we already know where we're going here. Tiger Woods assumingly joining up with TaylorMade. But the question now is, what does the logo mean? And I have an interesting thought process on what this might become, but I want you to lead off here with the news that TaylorMade might officially be logging in Tiger Woods as their man in the coming weeks.
I mean, he already he was kind of like their guy. I mean, because that's what he was playing from an equipment perspective. But I mean, I think it's going to be. I mean, now maybe from a legal perspective, they couldn't use the traditional TW logo, which is kind of like what Tiger was known for with Nike, with the hat, and like on the back of the shirt, or on the bottom of the shoes, maybe from a legal perspective, they couldn't use that. I don't know that for a fact. It's just maybe a guess. I think it's more of, I think it could be partly that, and also just a new era in kind of like the Tiger, I guess like the legend of Tiger Woods in a way. They're changing up the logo a little bit, a little bit of a change since, he's completely done with Nike now. And they wanted to maybe spice it up a little bit. They didn't just want to keep it the same. I think the logo's great. I really do. I think the logo's sweet. That's really what I think it is, though.
So I have a crazy idea, and I'm going to put this out on TikTok, but I want the folks listening at home, whether it be in podcast form or on YouTube, to hear it first. I think, so to answer your question about the legal side, Tiger Woods owns the trademark to TW, but I think, so technically he could use it with TaylorMade, but I think this is a different chapter of his life, and I think he wants to go past this. I think the key is, and it's similar to the debate that I had for a bit about why didn't Tiger Woods create a brand like Michael Jordan did with Nike, where he created Jordan as a adjacent company. I think the reason why was because he didn't want the whole story to be about him. He wanted to be sponsored by Nike, but he didn't want everything to be the Tiger Woods brand. That was just going to be a part of Nike. The TW was just a personal logo that he had made for him, and his apparel line was through Nike. It wasn't like the Tiger brand. I think this is because it's not associated to Tiger whatsoever. When you really kind of like break it down, yes, Sunday Red is Tiger. Yes, the Tiger logo is Tiger, but it isn't specifically Tiger Woods. I have a thought.
It is specifically Tiger Woods.
No. Like how the TW logo is literally Tiger Woods.
Yes.
The Tiger is not particularly him. I think this is a branding method that TaylorMade is going to use, where instead of Tiger Woods being the face of this brand, the brand is going to be called Sunday Red, and Tiger Woods is going to be the head brand ambassador of this and lead the business side. Use it as his own personal logo with TaylorMade Golf, but also select players for that once the day comes he retires to be ambassadors of Sunday Red and be chosen to wear red on Sundays, wear the logo, wear the branding, and continue the legacy of what Tiger Woods has done for the last 25 years. That's, I think, where it's going. And because you have such a expansive list of TaylorMade athletes and more coming into the space, one of the things that is really paramount now in the world of golf is the fact that the youth movement is getting more and more and more, because now college golfers have NIL money. They're sponsored earlier. For example, Nick Dunlap, TaylorMade athlete, got signed by them earlier this year. Michael Thorbjornsen, TaylorMade athlete, amongst others. As you bring more TaylorMade players into the scope, you also have the opportunity to now open the door further. Maybe Scotty Scheffler is asked, hey, wear red on Sunday now and be the first ambassador of this alongside Tiger. Your hand chosen by him. Just like how every single athlete to ever wear Jordan is hand selected by Michael Jordan. What do you think of that?
I don't think it's that deep. I don't think it's that deep. I mean,
it's crazy to think about.
The thing is, you're saying he's not the face of it, but then you said like the head of this brand. Like you just basically contradicted yourself.
No, because Jordan is Jordan. It isn't Tiger Woods' brand. It's a logo that is, it's Tiger, but it isn't like he owns the company, is what I'm saying. Michael Jordan owns the company. Tiger isn't owning anything. He's simply the ambassador of this portion of TaylorMade Golf.
It's his line. He is the face of this line.
But in the sense that like Jordan is technically a secondary, like Jordan isn't a subsidiary of Nike. They're majority owned by Nike, but they're not. It is its own enterprise. Jordan Enterprise is its own thing. Tiger Woods never had that with Nike, which I think is the key here. It's simply an apparel line under TaylorMade. It isn't like the Tiger brand. It's the apparel line. I might not be wording this correctly if it's confusing to you.
No, it's not confusing. It's just this is Tiger's brand under TaylorMade.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's the Tiger instead of being TW, it's literally like the Tiger.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's going to be overseeing it, and he might select guys to wear his TaylorMade line of clothing that is Tiger, like this specific line. Yeah. So in a way, it would be similar to Jordan, even though it's not as deep as what Jordan is. Maybe not yet. It could be. It could become that.
But I think also that's why it's important. It's called Sunday Red and not Tiger. It's like him. It's his likeness technically because he owned the Sunday Red look forever, but it isn't really him.
You and your technicalities.
It's all a metaphor.
It's
all of this deep down is a metaphor for the idea that there's going to be a legacy that's going to be expanded upon. That's all it is. Not that deep.
I'm aware of that. You're making it out to be deeper than it really is, I think.
All right, maybe so.
You literally are. Like, it's not that complicated. I almost dropped an F-bomb a couple of times. I'm like, this freaking guy is just making this out to be deeper than it is. It's like Jordan, but on a lesser scale. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, sure. But I think it's a fascinating concept to think about because you can have this massive group of TaylorMade golfers already: Rory, Scotty, Fleetwood, Colin Morikawa, and more. And also, it's a ploy or it's a marketing tactic for TaylorMade to steal athletes away from a Titleist or a Ping, Cobra, whatever brands. Whatever equipment brands there are, and now they're expanding more on their personal TaylorMade golf line, like their apparel line, rather than just being a equipment team. And eventually, you're going to have guys like everyone on Nike, Scotty, Tommy, Rory. They're going to need to find new apparel sponsors. Why not just go all out TaylorMade like Tiger is doing that and be the ambassadors of his line? I think it's really kind of the marketing stunt here.
Yeah, I agree.
The logo is cool. I saw a TikTok about it, and so someone thought that all the stripes on it there's 18 stripes, which might also be indicative of a golf course. Like maybe he's creating a golf course that looks like a tiger, which I know Greg Norman created a golf course that looks like a shark. Like it looks identical, I think, to his shark logo. I'm not wrong. That would be pretty dope.
I don't think it's that deep. I think maybe there's 18 stripes because there's 18 holes in a round of golf. If I were Tiger, I would make it with 15 stripes because he won 15 majors. That's what I would do. But
well, you never know what's going to happen. He might win a 16th.
You're unbelievable. You're actually unbelievable.
I know I am. All right, we're gonna bypass everything else on the AmEx because I think we have pretty much everything we needed to.
Wait! I have one other thing to say.
Please go ahead.
My comeback player of the year, Justin Thomas, is off to a scintillating start. Tied for third. That's a good word.
T3 shot 61 on Saturday.
Yeah. And that was a good SAT word, and I used it correctly.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thanks. So he's off to a great start this year. I'm about to be 2 for 2. Ricky last year, JT this year.
I was really upset because Sam Burns literally burned down in flames, and I had him to win this week on Beer Money. I thought I had a shot.
Wait,
He was also close.
What was
So
the tally?
you got 2, I got 1.
Oh,
You got Hadwin top 10, which is a great call. And we each got our make and miss the cut plays. Berger to make the cut and Block. Michael fucking Block just fucking died. He went like 3 under for the week. It was so bad.
3 under for the week. I love how you who shot 98 at Bethpage Yellow says that 3 under for the week is bad on 3 different golf.
20-year-old almost shot 30 under par.
I don't know why. This is the thing with people in sports that are like you. Oh, it's terrible. It's like you don't even play professionally. I think that's hilarious. Anyway, I think it's
Ben, I can't hit a baseball, but I can openly say Omar Narvaez sucks ass at baseball. Like that. Like,
yeah,
what's wrong with that? I know for a fact that I'm not as good as Omar Narvaez at baseball, but when you are in the top 1% and you suck within that 1%, someone's going to replace you at some point.
Michael Block is not in the top 1%.
He's playing PGA Tour events.
Yeah, because he finished top 15 at the PGA Championship. That's why.
He's also the number 1 rated PGA. What is it? The sponsor exemptions he gets now because he finished where he did in the PGA Championship is also because he carries with him under the PGA of America. I think he's the number 1 rated PGA of America teacher golfer. I don't really know what the rankings actually is.
Okay, yes, I understand that. He's not a bad golfer. That's not what I'm saying. He's a very good golfer, but he's not a tour level player. If he was a tour level player, he wouldn't be teaching golf.
Well, I mean, don't some tour level players eventually teach golf?
That's not really how it works. Teaching golf is more like a fallback for guys that didn't make it. That's kind of how it is. You can play a season or
that's true.
1, 2, or 3, but we're gonna go back to the talent gap thing, okay? The talent gap. Michael Block is not a PGA Tour caliber player. He had his moment at the PGA, okay? He got in because he played well in the PGA of America Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's how we got into that. Okay, so he's gotten some other. He played awful at Colonial, I think it is. Is it called?
Yeah, Colonial.
Yeah, he played awful there. His highlight of the week was him hitting a ball off the bridge or something. He's not a tour level player. So the fact that he shot 3 under in a PGA Tour event, playing 3 different golf courses, is very, very good. So he is a teacher. He's not a PGA Tour caliber player. If he was, he would be playing on the PGA Tour or the Korn Ferry Tour.
He did shoot better than Ricky Fowler this week. So
great. He had 1 week.
I know. I'm just saying. Okay. Anyhow, let's jump right on into it. Beer Money Time, brought to you by our friends over at Kenwood Beer, Philadelphia's favorite light lager. Log on to kenwoodbeer.com. Use the Kenny Tracker to find where you can get your hands on some ice cold Kennies this playoff season. While the Eagles might not be playing, you could still cash in on some good beer. Again, kenwoodbeer.com. Use the Kenny Tracker to find where you can get some ice cold Kennies. Ben, you started off. You went 2 for 5. Like I said, Hadwin and Block to miss the cut. I knocked in my Berger make the cut, and unfortunately, Cantlay blew up. He was top 5 going into Sunday. He finished I think 30th. He went 4 over. He had the worst score almost anybody on Sunday over par. And then Sam Burns goes 3 over in the final 2 holes to lose me a possible win early on in the year. But hopefully we can figure things out at the Farmers Insurance Championship. Top 20 pick for you this week.
It's the Farmers Insurance Open, not Championship. I'm going to go. What's that?
Thank you.
No problem. I like to make sure the viewers are very well informed. Top 20. I'm going to go with a pretty safe pick. I'm going to pull a little Kyle Shanahan and be ultra conservative in my game plan for this series. Jason Day, top 20. He's had success on actually these 2 golf courses. They play 2 courses this week, the North and the South course. The South course is really the famed course at Torrey Pines. That's the course that they play in the U.S. Open. 1 round on the North, 3 rounds on the South. They alternate first 2 rounds just to give everybody an overview. Jason Day, top 20.
Thank you for the overview. I was going to explain that actually, and thank you for taking lead on that one. By the way, what's your opinion on the multiple course setup for an event?
I don't mind it. I think I think 2 courses is fine.
3's a lot.
3 is a lot, especially when you're coming from Hawaii. Look, some guys because if they get into the Century, their season starts in Hawaii, and they're just like, well, I played the Century, might as well play the Sony. Some guys, they decide to start the year in Palm Springs, so it's like, oh, you know what, 3 courses is actually not that much at all. It's not that much because generally what happens is guys will play on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's how it works. Now, if you're a Monday qualifier, it's a little bit different, even though you can't Monday qualify, I believe, into the AmEx. Yeah. It's a lot. 3 courses. That's tough. I like 2. You play if you're a tour member, you play one of them on Monday, one of them, if you're hypothetically this week, they play the South course on a Monday, play the North course on a Tuesday, and then they play the Pro-Am day. That's wherever you end up getting told to go. I do feel for the Monday qualifiers though, because the way that the Monday qualifying system works is you play the Monday qualifier, which is some course in the area. Tuesday, you get to play a practice round. Well, you got to go out and you have to pick which course you're going to play. And then your caddy, because you're not going to play 36 holes in a 1 day for a practice round. That's just kind of ridiculous. So then your caddy has to go out to most likely the North course because you're only going to play it once. You're only guaranteed to play it once. So you just go, he's going to go or she's going to go and scout the course for you without you really seeing it. Maybe you can walk it. That's also an option. But then Wednesday is the Pro-Am day. And so as a Monday qualifier, because you're not in the Pro-Am, because you're not a tour member or you just weren't in the tournament until Monday evening, you only get to practice. So I really feel Monday qualifiers, it's hard because you only get to play the course 1 time leading up to that tournament. It's really tough when you only get to play the course, one of the 2 courses 1 time. That makes it really difficult. So I like it. Long story short, I like it. I don't mind it. I think 3 is a lot though. So
there you go. Top 20. I'm going with Minwoo Lee this week. Really strong resume going into this week. 3 straight top 35 finishes. I think a strong showing at Torrey Pines can be really good. He was as high as top 5 when they came here for the U.S. Open and has played traditionally well here at the Farmers in the past, particularly at Torrey Pines South. Top 10. Who are you taking?
I'm going with my main man, Max Homa. I think he's from Southern California, isn't he?
He is indeed.
Yep. Hometown event for the kid. I think he's going to have a really good week this week. I like Max Homa out here. I really do. I think his game overall fits both courses. And I think he is the type of guy, he's going to tear up the North course. He's going to tear that course up for sure in whichever round he plays it. So
yeah. I'm joining you with Max Homa, the reigning champion here at this event from last season. I think this is the first big week that Homa gets to really show his his skill set, which I think is really important for his overall game this year. His win last year really predicated what was to come for the remainder of the year. Also had a really good start 2 years ago when he had like 17 top 15s. It started early on this year at the Farmers, so I like Max Homa as well. Top 10, top 5.
Top 5. This one's hard for me, man. There's a lot of really good players. I'm going to go with Morikawa to finish top 5. He's having a solid year. He won an event in the fall. I'm going to go with Morikawa top 5.
You're really stealing all my picks this week.
Or you're just agreeing with me. That way you don't lose more ground because you're losing.
No, I'm going to stay away. He loves backdoor finishes on Sunday and has finished top 5 at this event multiple times in the past. Finished top 5 this week at the AmEx. I'm going to take the guy who's local to this golf course from San Diego, Xander Schauffele, for a top 5 this week. Your gimme pick of the week. Again, both of us hit this past week, so it should be a fun time to see who's taking who.
Man, I feel like such a dick for what I'm about to say, but I'm going to go with Michael Block to miss the cut again. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a really nice guy, and it's a great story. But, I mean, come on now. The South
Christ.
I'm sorry, man. He's going to miss the cut.
This is the Michael Block hatred show.
I don't hate the guy. It's just he's not a tour player. He's a teaching pro, so he doesn't play as much. I'm sure he plays quite a bit, to be honest, because there are some gigs where it's like literally they tell the head pro, you're going to go play. You're going to go play with the members. That's what we want you to do. And we want you to play tournaments to represent the club. That a lot of time, that's a sweet gig because then you end up having like 7 assistants under you. It's like assistant 1, assistant 2, assistant 3, and there's like 7 of them, and they just do all your work. That's a real thing. Maybe he has that going for him, but I don't hate this guy at all. I don't want anybody to think that, but it's a gimme pick. And I just don't think in a much deeper event. This is a deeper event than the AmEx, you know, and he missed the cut at the AmEx, so one would think he'd probably miss the cut at this one as well. So yeah, and
also not for nothing, he only gets 2 rounds to make the cut, where this past week he had 3 rounds to make or miss the cut. So bit of a different story as well. I think the interesting part this week too is that it's a Wednesday start, so we're gonna have a champion crown on a Saturday to not overtake the conference championships in football for Sunday. With that being said, I think the important takeaway here is that guys who are already in California and have played this week, it's really while obviously the guys who did not play this week will still have the opportunity to play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but conditions as already playing California at the AmEx, but particularly 3 different courses. I think if you played well here, I think you'll do well at Torrey Pines because you have you played so many different spots over the last week. My gimme this week, I'm going to go top 30 finish. You can call it a cop-out, but I think I'm being conservative like Kyle Shanahan here as well, with the sole reasoning that every time I take him, he always burns me. After a backdoor top 5 finish this week at the AmEx, Justin Thomas for a top 30. Let me give you a rundown here of how good he's been so far. Through 3 rounds, because we don't have all of the data for this week. He was +3 in strokes gained putting. He was +2 on strokes gained approach. Sorry, +3 on approach, +1 in off the tee, and overall he was 6 strokes plus for the first 3 rounds at the AmEx, and again on 3 different courses. Since he played the Wyndham Championship, he's finished 12th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd. He's been so consistent for those last 4 weeks, and he's been gaining a total of 14 strokes tee to green across the 4 events if you average them all out. That's how good he's been. Playing from the Wyndham to the 40 net to the Needham, which is out in Africa, and now this week at the AmEx, plus the Century and the Hero World Challenge has been on absolute fire. So I'll take JT for a top 30. Your winning pick at the Farmers this week.
Xander Schauffele. That's who I'm going with. I was thinking about taking someone out of left field, like a Sam Ryder, but honestly, I like Xander Schauffele this week. I do.
So it's funny because when you look at the field this week, while it is very strong, this year so far, it's really been the season of long shots. Chris Kirk won at 200-1. Grayson Murray won at 400-1. And Dunlap won at 300-1.
By the way, he's playing this week.
Oh,
Nick Dunlap.
I mean, I'm not gonna pick him to win quite yet, but the people who have won at this event in the past, it's a very diverse list, and it's funny because while the field's really good, you don't always get the top players in the world winning these events. Luke List won 2 years ago. Remember his shitty putt off against Will Zalatoris, the 121st versus the 138th ranked putters on tour.
Hey, be nice to my friend Will. He's kind of going through it right now, I think.
He played relatively well this week. He made the cut.
All right, good.
So, but like again, in the past, Luke List has won here, Justin Rose has won, Jason Day, Brant Snedeker, Scott Stallings, a very diverse grouping of players. I'm gonna go a little out of left field for the win because of the fact that it's already so hard to win in terms of picking the right guy for an event like this. He isn't totally out of left field. Sunjae Im this week to win.
That's not out of that. That's a good pick. That's a solid because it feels like he wins a couple times a year, and it always feels like June, July, he's like top 10 in FedEx Cup points as it is. Like he's an overall consistent guy who just when you have a guy that's that consistent, eventually they're just gonna win. It's gonna happen.
Sunjae Im actually hasn't won a PGA Tour event since 2021.
That is shocking to me. It's also 2024, which I just cannot believe still.
Yeah. He won the Shriners in 21. He won the Sanderson Farm in 2019, the Honda in 2020. His last professional win came on the Korean Tour. He won the Genesis Championship in Korea. Crazy. I apologize. He won the Woori Financial Group Championship in May of 23. That was his last professional win. So you're right. His problem is he plays golf very much like you did at Bethpage, where it's almost he's the same under par as he is over par. He somehow manages to finish the week almost at like even.
I don't know if I should take that as a slight or a compliment. That was a little bit of a dig right there.
It is because Sunjae Im's a really good golfer, but the problem is that he'll finish around 2 under par. He makes 9 birdies and 7 bogeys. It's a ridiculous card to have.
There's so many things I could roast you for, but that's a good pick. Congratulations.
I'm a fan of Sunjae this week, but again, to win and get a winning pick right is so challenging. So. But he's middle of the pack for the odds board, so I'll take a risk. Ben, is there anything final you want to discuss before we head out? I believe the Chiefs are beating the Bills right now.
Oh my God, dude! Could you imagine if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl? I don't know if someone on this podcast network, he was like. The NFL, they want to see Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift kissing under the confetti. Could you imagine if the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, how Swifties would just lose their mind? I wouldn't even be able to watch the Super Bowl because the camera would just pan to Taylor Swift nonstop anytime Travis Kelce's name is mentioned.
You know what really fucking kills me? I had a 7-leg parlay that missed. So 2 weeks ago, Aaron Jones scored 3 touchdowns against Dallas. Aaron Jones did not score at all against San Francisco. Jordan Love had 9 or 8 red zone looks and only converted on 3 of them. I had Jordan Love over 1.5 touchdowns hit. The San Fran money line hit. McCaffrey anytime touchdown, he had 2. Aaron Jones, anytime touchdown, missed. And then tonight, a part of the parlay, I had Mike Evans, Isaiah Pacheco, and Josh Allen touchdowns. Had I won, it was $10 to win $453.
Wow.
Fuck you, Aaron Jones.
Why are you mad at Aaron Jones? He
didn't fucking score after he scored 3 against Dallas.
He is easily a top 10 running back in the league.
I could have made $400, but of course he doesn't score. It was the easiest pick too. I'm like, oh well, he scored 3 against Dallas, the main cog in this offense. He's gonna score, but no, he didn't. So I got screwed out of $400 because of the playbook from Matt LaFleur.
Well, I love how you're criticizing Aaron Jones and Matt LaFleur, and also I think I was actually wrong to say that Kyle Shanahan was being conservative. He actually wasn't being that conservative because he had Brock Purdy throwing the ball all over the field in a rainy game where Purdy had to have gloves on and literally couldn't grip the ball. It was hilarious. That was one of his worst games coached, I think, ever. He did.
Well, they survived.
What's that?
But they survived. Survived in advance.
Yeah, Green Bay, literally, it looked like Green Bay was going to win that game the majority of the game.
I'm pretty sure Green Bay has lost to San Francisco, I think, 3 times in the last 5 years in the playoffs.
Yeah, they lost in the NFC Championship game when Jimmy G went 6 for 8. They lost literally he went 6 for 8.
That was what 2019?
I think so. And then
21 they lost.
21 they lost in the divisional round.
And then this year,
Green Bay, I believe, and then they lost this year. So
crazy.
But this year it was I thought they were going to win that game. Regardless.
Going in, it was a very tight game. I thought San Francisco would still come out triumphant. But again, the Packers had 8 red zone looks, and they all ended in field goals. And Anders Carlson missed 3 field goals. I think.
Look, playoff pressure is obviously different. You can tell. I can't imagine playing in it. Watching it, the speed is so much faster than that of a regular season.
Of course, yeah.
Those windows. The windows go from this to this on passes. It's insane. There were balls. I don't think Purdy played as bad as some people think, given he's a quarterback that needs to be in good weather or a dome. He's just not very big. And it was evident he was having a hard time holding on to the football, but I don't think he played as bad as some people might be thinking. I think the game plan kind of really I think his own coach kind of screwed him over. You have the best running back in the NFL, and they just weren't really giving him the ball. And I was like, you're a power run team. Your entire squad, for the most part on offense, is built to basically run people over.
Yeah.
And I think losing Debo, I really hope Debo's okay because that guy is a stud. But I think Kyle Shanahan just did a bad job calling the game. I was like, dude, this is insane to me. I don't know what.
We might be a golf show, but at the end of the day, we also give you the best NFL news. We have to get going. I apologize. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in this week. Episode 138 of the Get in the Hole podcast, brought to you by Tomahawk Shades, Kenwood Beer, and of course, PHI Apparel Co. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Subscribe. Get in the Hole pod, Underground Sports Philadelphia, Twitter, Instagram, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and of course on YouTube. 73, I believe KB said, subscribers away from our January goal. Help us out there with only 9 more days to go in the month. Enjoy the golf this week at Torrey Pines. We'll see you guys next week to keep things rolling on the PGA Tour. And let's fucking go. Have a good week. Thanks for listening to Get in the Hole, the official golf podcast of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Catch us every week wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and be sure to like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Get in the Hole Pod, and follow Underground Sports Philadelphia at Underground PHI. We'll see you next time. And remember, get in the hole!